Welcome to Unity, let's go! My first project, Scene View Navigation. We are in a default view of Unity. We want to hop over to the Scene View tab, and we can see the visual elements. This is generally where you'll be during the editor portion of Unity. Within here, we can see all the visual representations of what exists in the scenes hierarchy. As we click on each of the folders, we can see the different organization of each component within the folder, and we see that with an outline on those objects. If we open up the folders, then we can click on individual objects. Within the actual scene view, let's first start with the tools. The tools can be dragged around and docked to different portions of the screen. We can also right click on them and change their layout. Let's hop through these different tools. First, we have the view tool, and this is just allowing you to grab the scene and move correspondingly. The next is a move tool. If you click in the scene on an object, then we'll highlight that individual object and we can move it with the translate gizmo along the X, Y, and Z axis. It's currently set to world axis, and we can always change that to a local axis, and we can see now that the manipulator is more in line with the actual object. Let's hop back to global. The next is rotation tool, which allows you to rotate along those axes. Again, if we were to go to local, then it makes more sense to the individual object. Let's hop back over to global. With the scaling tool, scaling is working along the different axes, but it looks as though it's acting more on a local scale because the axes are in line with the actual object. Now we have the rect tool. Again, if we were to hop over to local, then we could manipulate it along its individual axes. The hotkey to go from local to global is X. And finally, the transform tool, which kind of includes all of them. The scaling, the transform, the rotation. The hotkeys, when it comes to navigation within the scene view, generally go W-E-R-T-Y. W for translate, E for rotate, R for scale, T for rectangle tool, and the Y is for the overall transform tool. Now notice that the origin point is where everything is rotating around or translating from. If we select multiple components, then up here in the left-hand corner, we can see the pivot point, and if it's at its pivot, then the last selected object will act as where the pivot is from. However, if we were to switch over to center, we can see that the origin point becomes the center of the different objects. The hotkey to switch from this is Z. Now let's continue on with this upper toolbar. The grid down here on the ground is toggled on and off with this. We can also change what axis it's displaying on by going into the caret dropdown. The snap is a tool which only works within the global setting, so let's hop over with X, and you can see it's now available to use. Snapping allows us to snap. You can see it goes incrementally, and this is adjusted with the drop down, and we can now make it snap at, say, 5. And we can choose all axes. The next one is snap increment, and this will apply to rotations. So we'll rotate 15 degrees at a time, and that's accessed by clicking first on a rotate axis and then holding Control, and we can now see that it will snap at increments of 15 degrees. If we made an adjustment to that and made it extreme 90, then we can see that these little tick marks in the circle are now at 90 degrees. From here, let's actually start to navigate around the scene. Generally, the navigation happens with holding the Alt button. We can see that it's active when up here in the upper left, it starts to change tools. The first is holding Alt and left mouse button. And while moving the mouse, we can see that there's a rotation that's happening. Next, let's try the right mouse button. And now we are holding both the Alt and the right mouse button and then moving the mouse left and right to zoom in and out. It's not needed, but during navigation, if you hold middle mouse button and move, it will switch us into the move tool. And holding Alt while doing that doesn't make an effect, but as you are rotating and then zooming in and out and panning, being able to hit the right mouse button while holding Alt just makes sense. But really, we could let go of Alt and use the middle mouse button to actually move. We can also zoom in and out with the middle mouse scrolling. Forward will zoom in, down will zoom out. You can notice that when we rotate, there's actually an invisible pivot point. And say we were trying to rotate around the pizza truck, it's not our center point right now. If we want to make it our center point, then we can click on it and then hit F for focus. And if you tap on F, it will toggle between two states. First one is just an overarching of the object, and then the second is to zoom in on the origin or pivot point at that current time. So currently we're at the center, and if we were to hit Z, then zooming in again with F, it's now on its pivot point. We can hit F to get an overview, and now when we hit Alt and left mouse button, we see that our camera is rotating around the object. We can click on things and always hit F to find them. And that toggle is just F, 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 F. Zoom out and rotate around. If you like this content and would like to see more, consider supporting us on Patreon or one of these supported platforms.